slide.
Do you know where the afters is?
Live. Is everyone okay with the cans? Everyone, you've got the volume okay?
Me,
Yeah, I'm good.
Want to sit a little bit closer to the mic, my darling? All right, you can actually pull that as well.
Oh my word.
Oh, there you
Yeah.
go.
Oh,
Fully flexible.
There we go.
Right, so Ro Huntriss, welcome to the podcast. The Afters Cast. I forgot the name of it. Well,
Edit.
edit that out.
Edit
No,
straight
no.
away.
No,
Good.
keep it in.
We'll leave it in. It's organic. Welcome to the Afters Cast. How you doing?
I'm doing really, really well. Thank you both very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Well, obviously, I know who you are, and now Sean obviously
I do,
knows
right?
who
Yeah.
you are. But for those at home who don't, who the fuck are you?
I think I'm probably like the most random podcast guest that you've had to date. But basically, so my name's Ro Huntriss, and by trade, I'm a dietitian. So I've worked as a dietitian for 12 years and work in many different aspects of the nutrition field. But one of my specialist areas is fertility. And that's obviously going to be a key focus of the conversations that we're going to be having today. But I suppose like why I'm here is that me and you are pals.
Yes, we've known each other. We were just talking about that. 2000 and when did we meet? 2018.
Yeah,
17, 18.
17.
But we haven't seen each other since 19.
I know.
And realised it's like four years has
Yeah,
passed.
we've been like online friends.
We have been online friends, and I've sent you pictures of my dog on top of your book, which my wife got from the library, which also you guys found
It is
funny.
a strange library card.
Yeah.
you
What?
know.
We
I don't know.
think
Just
that you're a library goer.
you've got to be the only
What?
person I know with a
that.
with
Are
a
you-
library card.
Are you guys judging a book by its cover?
Oh, didn't
No one even got it. It's
cut
fine.
that out.
I thought that was hilarious. But anyway, 4 years since we've seen each other, and a lot's happened.
I know.
And a lot's gone on.
What has happened?
And it's, again, one of the reasons which why I wanted to speak to you today. And it's because of mine and my wife's fertility journey. Now, I know you know a little bit about it. You spoke to Eleanor. It wasn't so long ago when you actually reconnected. Was it about a month ago or two?
Yeah. I mean, because obviously she bought my book, got my book from the library,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, as I knew that you guys were having kind of like issues more latterly, we had a catch up around a month or so ago just to understand what was going on from both sides, just to see if there's anything that we could do to help from like nutrition, lifestyle, supplement perspective, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but before we go into that, let's just speak a little bit about your origin story. You know, you've got your Instagram handle is the Fertility Dietitian.
Nearly.
No,
Not good at names. This one, is it?
fertility.
Not today. Normally he's on the board. Have you got any notes there with you? What is
Wait
that?
there, no, don't tell me.
Go on, Rain Man.
I've said it every day for the last 2 weeks. Go on, just
Go on.
fill the blank.
Fertility.dietitian.uk.
Oh, stop! Come on,
you were
Yeah,
close.
not
give
far
me
off.
that.
Yeah, you were
90%
close.
of the way.
Okay, and just tell us a little bit about the origin story. How did you get into this journey, this career? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so as I say, became a dietitian like 12 years ago, and then when you like become a dietitian, you kind of do. So it's kind of like medical nutrition. So
Just
you
pull that a
have-
bit closer to your face for us.
So you have like placements in hospitals and things like that,
Yeah.
working across all different medical conditions. And then as you kind of like evolve as a dietitian, you find areas of health that you're particularly interested in. And so like full disclosure, I'm 37 now. When I was like late 20s, there was quite a lot of my friends who were starting to like access IVF, like even at the age of late 20s. And then they were coming to me knowing that I was a dietitian and saying, okay, I'm going through this at the moment. I'm struggling, like I'm not getting success, and lots of people want natural ways in which to like optimize their fertility. So they were saying to me, you know, what can we do? What can we do? Diet, lifestyle, etc., supplements. And then, you know, I at the time knew the basics, but fertility nutrition is actually really, really specific. So I was like, I don't have the exact answers as to the supplements that you need. So I took it upon myself. I was like, this is an area that really needs representation where there isn't representation at the moment. So I just spent years basically looking at the evidence base and going into like all the papers that I possibly could. And it's evolved from there really. So then I set up, so in 2020, I set up the my Instagram page, so fertility.dietitian.uk. And originally it was just kind of like a platform just to share evidence-based information on nutrition, supplements, lifestyle to support fertility. And then from that has kind of like evolved a business. So I support patients on their fertility journey. So both, you know, men, women, couples, And also I now like educate healthcare professionals as well, because there's such little, like so many healthcare professionals want to support people in this field, but there isn't the courses or the education to support them. So I now offer that. And then, as you know, like I then published the book last year. So, and the publisher Dorling Kindersley, you know, they were the one that had the title and they wanted to run with it. So it just shows that it's a conversation that's really starting to gain some traction now. So many more people are interested in it and want to know what they can do. So yeah, it's just kind of like led me to where I am now. And yeah, I'm just kind of like really enjoying it. And we may or may not touch upon it later in the episode, but I'm going to be like freezing my eggs next month as well. So it's got like a bit of like a personal side to the journey. So now I'm getting to put everything that I know, you know, like from the nutrition and supplement side, like into practice. So I'm like living the patient journey as well now, if you like.
That's amazing. And also, I have noticed you're documenting that as well and putting it on publicly for people to see that journey. And I think that's inspirational, because that's a very personal thing to be talking about publicly anyway. Obviously, because you're passionate about it and it's part of your career and a part of your life, obviously it makes sense, but it's still very brave for you to do that and put that on socials, I think. Well,
yeah,
it's amazing.
I know. Well, I think like, full disclosure again, kind of like freezing eggs because was in a long-term relationship, didn't quite go to plan, so didn't quite have the expected outcome. So I was like, okay, what's plan B? It seemed like egg freezing was a good thing to do. And I think, you know, we know that on Instagram, it's very much like a picture perfect life. And I think it's actually like really good to show vulnerabilities and actually when things haven't quite gone to plan, because so many women go through that, and you know, men can have their fertility struggles as well. But I think when you actually document and share, it makes people in those positions feel less alone. So yeah, I've had like really good reception from sharing it so far, and I'm really happy to have done so, and will continue to do so, like both the good and the bad.
Yeah, so I love how you put that as well about the vulnerability, about putting that out there is making people in that same situation not feel alone. I've never looked at it like that before, but it was absolutely wonderfully put.
Thank you.
And that's kind of another reason why I wanted to have this conversation. You know, people might think we're only so many episodes into the podcast. You've had DJs on, you've had people in the music industry, and now you're speaking to a fertility dietitian. What's the angle there? And I'm going to be showing some vulnerability today, because my journey, mine and my wife's journey through fertility has been a long, difficult, painful, beautiful at times, but very difficult journey. And I have at points found it difficult to speak to people about it, or not knowing who to speak to. I've got a great friendship. I've got a really tight friendship group, but as a man, I sometimes didn't know how far to divulge. And obviously this is a complete opposite to that. I'm literally telling everyone who's going to listen to this podcast, but I think this conversation needs to happen. So I want to just go straight into it, because I want to basically go through my journey, and then along the way I'll kind of, you can interject, and I'm going to ask you a lot of questions today, because there's a lot of questions that I know the answers to now, but I want them repeated so that people at home don't feel that they're alone who are going through this. Not even just that. We spoke before this, and I was saying to you, Sean, obviously this is not something that you've had to deal with personally, but I've been in that position before. And when me and my wife started this fertility journey, if you want to call it, I realized how much I didn't know about any of this. I didn't know anything. I didn't even know how IVF worked. I had no idea what IVF, I knew what it was, but I didn't know how IVF worked. I didn't know that. I always assumed it was the woman's fault that you couldn't have babies, and the men were sweet, you know. You just do your thing and then it's fine. But that's not the case. A lot of these things aren't talked about. So yeah, I'll go straight into it. So me and my wife, we decided we were going to start for a family. It was in lockdown, actually. So we're living. So this is I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but I'll start again, just so people who haven't listened to that episode can understand. When lockdown happened, we went to, it was actually 3 months before, I was with a manager at the time who you know, and we were planning a whole set of tours. I had a South America tour, I had an Australia, Bali, New Zealand tour, all locked in. So I was going to move back to my mother-in-law's with Eleanor. That'd be weird if it wasn't with Eleanor. For 4 months, do these tours, which was going to accrue X amount of pounds, which was a decent amount. That was going to be the deposit for a house. 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to Ecuador to start at Lost Beach Club, lockdown happened. So everything in the diary got cancelled. My agents were like, it's okay, 3 to 6 weeks, everything will be back to normal. It was fucking, everything was sacked off for months, right? Obviously, as performers, we couldn't perform. So everything I was supposed to make went to shit. So I had no plan B or anything. So I was literally at my mother-in-law's with no plan B, no money, all that stuff. So we're like, well, we've got this time now before things go back to normal. Why don't we use this time and like we'll try for children, because we don't know what's going to happen. Eleanor has been on the pill for years, since she was 16 or 17 or whenever it was. She's been on the pill, so she didn't know how long that's going to take to come off the pill and then the effects that would have. And I didn't know any of that. I thought you miss one pill and you have sex once and you become pregnant, and it's not that fucking easy, trust me. So Eleanor obviously stopped that. And we tried for about 9 to 12 months, and we weren't having any luck. And at that point, we'd also moved out of the mother-in-law's, luckily, because that was a bit weird all the time trying to have children at the mother-in-law's. Got a bit intense. So anyway, we got our own place. We were renting a place down the road. We were set up, but at the same time, we were like, everything is kind of falling into place, but this fertility thing is just not. What's going on? Something's got to be happening, because we're doing all we could, and it just wasn't happening. So Eleanor said, I'm going to go and get some tests, but I think you should too. And my response was, I got to get tests. Now, surely, if there's a problem, I'm sure it's going to be like with you. And that was my reflex. Have you ever found that's that kind of a response? Or, I mean, this was years ago. This is 3-4 years ago. But that was my natural response, that it was going to be heard.
It's what society assumes, but it's also what's been put out there to society, that everything's on the woman.
Yeah. And
actually, research shows that up to 50% of cases of infertility, like male factor, plays a part in up to 50% of cases.
I didn't know it was 50.
Yeah,
I didn't know it was that high.
50. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. And it's like, because basically, there's lots of different factors that can affect it. It's getting pregnant in the first place. The time taken can all be influenced by male fertility. But what people also don't realise is miscarriage. Because when a woman is carrying the baby, then it's thought, oh, well, if there's a miscarriage, then that has to be the fault, in inverted commas, of the woman.
Yeah.
But actually, it can be due to, the integrity or the quality of the sperm that can still play a role and can have an effect on miscarriage as well. So it carries on all the way across the journey. Even if,
so you think because you guys have got pregnant, it has to be on her if there's a miscarriage.
Yeah.
That, again, that's a misconception as well, which people just don't know. But again, you wouldn't know unless you were doing this thing. This is what I'm trying to get across, is we have learned so much about this, but only because we've been in the thick of it. So anyway, I'll kick back in there. So we went for some tests. Eleanor went and had a high COSI. Is that like I think it's a scan. They put, do you know what the high COSI is? Where they put I think it's like they put a dye through the fallopian tubes and then they do a scan to see if there's any irregularities. I might have got that completely wrong. People who are listening know what that is. It's something like that. But I went to a fertility clinic, can't remember where it was, only half an hour from me, and I went and just assuming I was going to do a sperm sample and just get a sperm result back, okay? And I did that. I did a sperm analysis test, and it came back that there was low normal forms. So everything else was great, high sperm count, everything was great, but it was low normal forms. And the guys at the clinic were like, oh, you only need one sperm to be pregnant to become pregnant, so it's not a problem. And I was like, oh, sweet, okay, so that's the only one thing that was low on there, but it's something that they'd say don't worry about. So we didn't worry about it. So we kept trying, and then I was like, okay, something's still not right. So I went back to the same clinic, and they said, right, this is a doctor called, I'll give him a big up because he really helped me, Dr. Jonathan Ramsey, and he's known as the king of balls, actually. That's his nickname in the industry. The king of
that was also your nickname in the industry.
The king of knackers. So he said, right, you need to do these tests. So it was a plethora of tests. It was a scan. I had to do DNA fragmentation test, all these other things. There was like 4 tests. The scan was fine. Everything was fine. But the DNA fragmentation test came back as really high DNA fragmentation. So essentially, how to put that in layman's terms is the sperm quality themselves is degraded. So whether the tails are misshapen, the heads are misshapen. Am I getting that right? Or
so in terms of like the DNA fragmentation, that's more about like, excuse me, like the genetic material that the sperm carries.
Okay.
And when I mentioned about like miscarriage before, having high levels of sperm DNA fragmentation, that can be a risk factor for miscarriage.
Okay.
And that's one of the key things. And as you all know, like when people go for like semen analysis, you get the normal things like count, concentration, motility, morphology, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then they can all be fine, but actually it can be the DNA fragmentation, which is an issue. But that's a separate standalone test. And like you'll know, these things that they're costly as well. So
absolutely. So I had the analysis and I thought like all those ones you just mentioned, morphology, were all great. And I was fucking buzzing. I was like jumping, like this is great. But also then I was thinking, oh, this puts the burden back on Eleanor. But I was full of shit because I didn't know that the DNA fragmentation was really high. But that test, it took me months after that because it was another 450 quid.
And are these all individual tests as well that you have to take?
So that plethora of tests I had cost about $2,000.
Okay. And
then from that, they realised that DNA fragment, or the normal forms was still, that was the only one that stood out. Then I did the DNA fragmentation, which was about £420 on top for one test.
But what, just thinking, for people of low income families, like what is the alternative for them? Is this something that they can go through the NHS, or, is there an alternative for them? Do you know?
So generally, people can access the NHS, like generally when they've been trying to conceive for say like 12 months and have been unsuccessful, because that then deems them as being like having issues with infertility.
Yeah.
So then they would go through like the standard tests that we mentioned before, like the count, the concentration, etc. But like additional tests like the DNA fragmentation, that isn't always on the NHS. And so yeah, it is why a lot of people turn private, but obviously that's not an option for everybody. So yeah, there is an issue there. And I think the more that these conversations happen, then, hopefully more people listen and more funding will go into the NHS, and then to allow for more testing like that to make it open to more people.
There's a company that, the guy that I did the first test through, I've done like 3 of those fragmentation tests now, just because you've got to keep seeing where you are with it. I'll come into why I did extra tests after that. But there's a company called Test Him. I don't know whether you've heard of them. Yeah. So they're trying to bring these sort of tests to the public for a more affordable price, and they're trying to create an alternative, because these tests, I think it went up from like $350 to $420 in like 6 months when I was doing it.
Wow.
These tests are just getting more expensive. And like you said, for the lower income families, that isn't possible. And especially like if you're looking at IVF, that's just completely out the question unless, you're in a certain, like, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but yeah, those tests obviously clearly aren't available for everyone if you haven't got the money. And that comes on to the next part of this, which was because the DNA fragmentation was high, Dr. Ramsey said, you're going to have a varicocele operation. So I did the second scan, and they said that you've got a varicose vein, which is, I'm going to go quite a bit of detail here, but it's a build, and you can tell me if I'm getting this wrong, but it's a build-up of blood vessels around the area where the sperm are. So it's essentially creating lots of heat where the sperm are, and it's making the sperm deformed. So that's this was the theory. It's all theory, right? So they're just trying to pinpoint things. Some people say it could be heat from going in saunas and wearing tight boxes, because that heat creates the heat that destroys the sperm. For me, apparently, I had they measured it, the size of the vein. It's basically under your knacker. It's on the bottom of your ball, and they basically said on the left side it's really big. You're going to have to get it removed. That's not covered by the National Health Service. So I was sitting in this meeting, right, okay, how much is this going to cost? And they were like, okay, well, we can book you in 3 months or 2 months, but it's going to cost like 4,900 quid. And I was like, well, I've got no options. Like, we literally, this is all we want, is to start a family. It wasn't for us at the time. Money wasn't a thing. Obviously, luckily, we have the resources to do it, but that's a lot of money to have an operation. Also, it was not on a whim. It was basically like a process of elimination. It could be this, it could be this, but this is probably the strongest idea of what is causing the DNA fragmentation, the normal forms to be low. So we did the operation, I got in really quick, 2 months later, had the operation. Oh, that was awful. So you're awake, right? You get numbed down there, and they go in through a vein in the side of your leg and into your ball, and they basically burn the varicocele vein.
I'm just thinking, anyone listening now is thinking, fuck that.
A lot of people are going, yeah. When are we going to start talking about record labels? Yeah, so basically, so you have to go in through a vein in your leg, and it goes in. And when they zap the vein, right, and you've been kicked in the balls before, I imagine.
Indeed, I
Right?
have, yeah.
You haven't, but you definitely have.
Can I just tell you a story on that, actually?
Please interject.
Sorry.
Please interject. Talk about me knackers for 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, I actually got, when I was younger, someone actually kicked me in the nuts, and it hit a vein, and my nuts swollen up.
How old were you?
Oh, God, I'm maybe 19, 20. I was really pissed, and one of my friends kicked me in the nuts, and it
Your ball swollen up?
Like, but like embarrassingly big. It was so embarrassing. I had to get rushed to A&E.
Did you?
Yeah, and obviously it wasn't life-threatening, but they kept on sending in, right?
A life-threatening ball?
No, but they kept on sending in, like, loads of doctors to have a look, and I think they were just coming in because it would look ridiculous.
Like,
I was laying on the
wait, I'm just going to get...
Yeah.
I'm just going to get
Dr.
Dr. Jones to come in.
Like,
going, hey, mate, come look at this knacker.
I was like, wait, I swear down here, I've just seen him in the waiting room, and I'm laying there with no boxers on. Anyway, it went down, and it's all looking normal.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so,
that's great.
Anyway.
Thanks
Great
for that.
information.
Yeah. No, it was class. Please keep adding humour to this, because this is quite a deep conversation. We need some humour.
It is.
So anyway, when they do that operation, they go in and they zap it with this whatever it is, and it's basically put chemicals into it, and it feels like when you got kicked in the balls there, it feels like that times 100.
Ooh.
And you're lying on a thing and you can't move, and it's the worst pain. But anyway, that went on for like 4 or 5 days, the pain, and then it died down. And then they said, hopefully, and again, it's all hopefully, it's all like hoping, but in 6 to 7 months after the operation, that's when you should get another DNA fragmentation test, and then you should hopefully see some improvements in the normal forms. Normal forms was at 1% or below 1% when I did my first test. 6 months later, I did another test, and it was at 4 or 5%. So it was a significant increase. So we were like, right, something good has happened here. In that time, we also changed our diet. We were eating well. I also was advised not to wear boxers. So for months, I wasn't wearing boxers at all. I am wearing boxers now. I wasn't wearing boxers. That was advised, just again, because it creates heat and stuff. And no sauna, no steam room, none of that. So just trying everything we can. But anyway, it worked. So at that point, we were told by the Dr. Ramsey again that those varicocele veins, the varicose veins, they can grow back. So there's a time window you've got where the effectiveness of that operation is at its highest point. So we booked in IVF at that point because we'd been trying for, I can't remember, 2 years maybe or something. And obviously because of these issues that I'd had, we were like, why not make the most of this situation? Because we've just paid $5,000 for this operation. We paid however much money for the test and everything. Let's make the most of this. So we booked in our first round of IVF. That was in September 2022. And again, IVF, I mean, I'll talk about my journey, but I didn't know what to expect going in that clinic. I just thought we'd go in, I don't know why I numbed, I don't know, not numbing is not the right word, but I played it down in my head at how invasive it was. And like looking back now at how much Eleanor had to go through, it kills me. But the process of IVF, they're lovely. The clinics that we spoke to and the guys that we dealt with were great, and they were really professional. But the process of going in and then having to prepare, Eleanor has to be on hormones for however long, injections every single day, twice a day, to then going into the clinic to have the egg retrieval where they go in. So basically your body's creating. Do you want to explain IVF a little bit? Because I'm probably going to butcher it here. But do you want to just...
You're doing a good job. Interestingly, like egg freezing is actually the first half of IVF.
Okay.
People don't actually kind of like put the 2 and 2 together, but...
That would make sense.
It would make sense. Yeah. So in terms of, what the woman has to do initially is, taking different tablets, and it's all really to help to control the menstrual cycle and control hormones for when basically like the eggs are released. So first of all, it's tablets, and then they go on to hormonal injections, and it's to basically try to kind of like grow as many eggs as possible safely for then the egg collection.
Yeah.
So then that is obviously the point of like egg collection. So then for egg freezing, those eggs are then just frozen. And then I didn't even think about this point, but of course, you know, it's just part of the process. But you have to, once you do your egg freezing, you then have to like pay for storage. So like the storage of freezing eggs is like £30 a month. So it's like a gym membership for like your eggs just to freeze them. But anyway, that's that. And then so from the male side, we obviously need the sperm. Yeah. So
our job's easy. Our job's very easy compared to, this is the thing, I'm laughing about it, but it really isn't a laughing matter, because the woman's job in this situation is so like invasive, isn't it?
Yeah. And then in essence, the sperm and the eggs are kind of like mixed together in like a Petri dish, if you like, and then like fertilized, and then those fertilized eggs are then implanted basically in the woman's uterus, and then the hope is then that then leads on to a pregnancy. So there's also options as well. So when you have embryos that form, you can then freeze them, so that if, like, say, the first round of IVF doesn't work, you can then do a frozen embryo transfer at a later date.
Yeah. So that process is the dampened version, which I knew, but then doing it is sat in the waiting room for Eleanor had to have her eggs collected. She's obviously in like a hospital gown, goes into this room, is put under. It's general anaesthetic, isn't it? I think general anaesthetic. She comes out. She's like all over the place. I've got videos of all this. Like, she's all over the place. She was like, did we do it? Like, it was so emotional to see it come out. But then afterwards, she was in pain. She had like, it was almost felt like she had like insides were scratched, you know. So she had, they go in and they pull the eggs out. So she had like a little bit of pain there. And sometimes like a couple of days she was sat on the couch. She just couldn't move. She was in pain. So that was brutal. And then, I mean, putting the embryo back was the easy part, you know, compared to the egg retrieval. But we also had ICSI. Because of my high DNA fragmentation, they didn't want to take the chance. So basically with ICSI, is what they do is they actually go into the sperm sample and they choose. It's fucking crazy how they do this. They go into the sperm sample instead of just doing them like normal IVF, where they just put the eggs and the sperm together and see which ones, you know, create the embryo. They choose a sperm.
Wow.
They get one sperm and put the sperm in the egg. And they do that for, say we got 9 eggs, I think, or 9 eggs, but 6 of them were mature. So we got 6 eggs, which were mature enough. They got 6 sperm. They got the sperm and they chose the best sperm. There's fucking millions of them. I don't even know how they do that. How do they do that? How do you get shortlisted in that group of million little me's? How does that work? I mean, do you know how they choose, like how they shortlist a sperm?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not an
embryologist,
but basically all of the factors that we spoke about before. So like motility, you can see basically how it moves, and if it kind of like, you know, moves in the way that you want it to, you know, tick. Also like morphology as well. And they just look at like the general quality.
Right, because they just choose them. So then we got 6 eggs. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but 3 of them were they kind of got to that embryo stage, and only 2 got to blastocyst, which is where they create like 10 or more cells or 16 or more cells or whatever. So we only had 2 out of 9 eggs that we got. We only actually got 2 which were worthy of going back in. There was 1 that was growing slightly. No, there was 3 actually. 1 was going way too quick, so they said, even though that's got the blastocyst, that's not right. So we put that aside. So we had 2. So we went obviously with a live transfer for the first one, and we got pregnant, and we lost it. It was very early, but we lost that one, which was really tough because we kind of we didn't know. Because we'd never done this before. We told family everything. So we were telling family and our close friends what we were doing. We told them that we got pregnant the same day. It wasn't, you know, not waiting until like the 12 weeks or whatever it is that people normally do. We just told everyone because we were like, this is going to happen first time. And it didn't. So we lost that one. And then we had one frozen. So I think we got 1, I think they said it's free for the first 12 months because you paid for the IVF cycle. So we had that frozen, and it was really tough. It was like October time where we found out, or November. So we're like, let's just leave Christmas. Let's just have Christmas, because Christmas was tough because we just had a loss. I've never talked about this like this before. It's fucking hard, man. So we lost that one, and then we tried again in February. So we had a few months to kind of gather ourselves, a bit like I'm now, gather ourselves, and we tried again in February. Again, a frozen transfer, like we were saying before. So we did a frozen transfer, and again, same situation. We got pregnant and then lost it. So coming back to what you were saying before about the fragmentation, we don't know. It's all again, it's like guessing, but there might be something there where the sperm they chose maybe had a fragmentation issue. We don't know. But that also brings me on to the next part of the journey. So we did the 2 rounds of IVF. We didn't have any more embryos at that point. Mm-hmm. So we said, let's just give it a minute and then let's just try naturally for a bit. So we just had a break. And then Eleanor has been a champion through this. She's the one that's done all the research and kind of been speaking to people in groups and forums and downloading all the apps and just kind of network. And there's apps like, I think there's one called Peanut, where you can. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Where you can.
It's like a community.
Yeah. App. So it's a community for people who are trying to get pregnant. And you can. I mean, there's a lot of shit on there. She said there's a lot of like people chatting crap, but there's also some. You connect with some people who are on the same journey. It's really helpful for her. So, she was in all these forums, and then she found a comment about a clinic in Epsom that did a treatment called super ovulation. Similar things, so hormones and like treatment to create more eggs. You want to get like, I think the ideal is anything between 2 and 4 eggs is ideal instead of 1, because women only release 1 egg through ovulation, but the idea is to create more so you have more of a chance. So hence the name super ovulation. So we did 4 rounds of that, and through every single stage of that, Eleanor has to take, I'm probably getting this wrong, but is letrozole a hormone? Mm-hmm. It is. So Eleanor has to take, again, my job, super easy. Eleanor's, what am I about? That was IVF. You try naturally in super ovulation. But basically, Eleanor had to take letrozole. And every single time we did a super ovulation round, it got put up slightly. So she started on 0.25 milligrams for the first round, and we weren't successful. The second time, we were successful and we lost it. I might be getting that wrong. It was for the first or the second, but anyway, we had another miscarriage. So at this point, we've had 3 miscarriages. But we thought we were onto something because we haven't had to do the really invasive IVF. But we got pregnant again, but naturally, only with a little bit of help from the super ovulation. So again, it got to put up from 0.5 to 0.75 for the next round, and we weren't successful. And then September just gone, this is the 4th round of super ovulation, and she ended up in hospital. So what had happened is one day she'd woke up. This is like 2 or 3 days into so she has to take letrozole 5 days and then stop. And then she goes and gets a scan, sees how many eggs we've got, and then it's like we know how many eggs. It was day 2 into the letrozole this time, and she got like, it looked like she's got an ulcer in her mouth, and she was like, really, she woke up with a painful ulcer. Like if you've been on a heavy one and you woke up with ulcers in your mouth. Yeah. She was like, it's just an ulcer, and just brushed it off. And then later that day, like her tongue was swollen, and she was like, this doesn't feel right. I can't really eat anything salty or sweet. Anyway, I was like, look, just wash your mouth out with salt. Just do the normal stuff to try and get rid of like an infection or whatever. Woke up the next day and her mouth was all swollen. So we went to, we had Bupa, so we called the Bupa GP, and they were like, it looks like, I think we went to the pharmacy first, and they were like, just use mouthwash. So she gave us fucking Sensodyne or whatever, and said, go home, try that. That made it way worse. So the next day she woke up, she couldn't even open a mouth. It was just all swollen. And I was worried about her breathing at this point. So we were like, right, let's just go to the hospital and see what the crack is. And then she ended up in hospital for 2 days on morphine because she was in so much pain. And it was because the letrozole gave her a bad reaction, and she got an infection in her mouth because of the letrozole. So the letrozole created this dose of letrozole, the 4 times what she started on, it gave her a bad reaction. So we're sat in A&E. Like, this is something we're paying for as well. This super ovulation is, again, it's private. I can't remember how much it is, but it's like thousands every time. So we were 4 rounds into this. We're sat in A&E, and she was asleep on my lap with haven't had morphine, and I was just like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, it's like so brutal, because like you're just trying so hard to do something that we both want so much, and like we're now in hospital. So we just when we got back from hospital 2 days later, I was going home and I was making a dinner and bringing it in, because she was like, hospital food's like, they're bringing food, but don't really like it. I was like, it's okay, I'll go home and make you some dal. So I went home, made a dal, brought it in, brought a breakfast, brought like a little bit of porridge, like hot, with like just trying to make it a bit nicer for her, because she's in hospital. She was surrounded by people with dementia and Alzheimer's, and it was very intense for her. Like when you're in like a hospital, and they just, luckily, you know, we're very lucky we got the NHS, and she was very well looked after. I know, kudos to them. It was incredible. They were all so lovely, but just trying to make it a little bit more comfortable for her when she was there. But I can't believe she was in there for 2 days. We got home from that, and I said, let's just give it a rest. Let's just chill. And I actually missed a part of the story before we start. We said at that point we're just going to try naturally for a bit. The cycle before, so the 3rd cycle of superovulation, the woman was doing a scan, you know, to see how many eggs we've got at superovulation. And she said, have you ever been scanned or tested for PCOS? And Eleanor went, this is 3.5 years or three and a half years into our journey. And she went, no, I've heard of it, but I've never been tested for it. And they went, okay, well, come here. So she was having an ultrasound. And in 5 minutes, this woman said, this nurse, lovely nurse, she said, oh, you've got loads of polyps on your ovaries. You've got PCOS. Is that right? Polyps on the...
So they're technically follicles, but like they're known as, like the name is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Okay. So they're kind of called cysts, but they're actually follicles that basically house immature eggs.
Yeah, and so Eleanor, they said, oh, your ovaries are covered in these follicles, these polyps. And Eleanor was like, should I have been tested for this? Or should I have known about this before? And the nurses who we were dealing with were like, this is something you probably should have looked at straight away. We didn't know. We had no idea.
Well, just on that, do you see this a problem when you're going private, that's maybe some of these things are missed because you're only going for one certain test at a time? Is this something that could be common?
I think sometimes, like when you go privately, they tend to look at things more widely, like across the board, because I guess they maybe have like the time or the capacity to be able to invest in somebody in an individual case a little bit more.
Yeah.
But also it can depend on the clinician. You know, that was by chance.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of PCOS, you know, because Eleanor is very slim, so she has something that's called lean PCOS, whereas more typically people may be overweight who have PCOS. So it can be trickier to actually identify in somebody who is slim. So I think it was lucky that it was picked up on something like that, and you obviously have like an astute sonographer who was probably doing the ultrasound. We
were lucky, and at that point, if that woman hadn't said, that nurse, that very lovely nurse, hadn't just said that on an off comment, we'd probably be sat here now, maybe trying superovulation, whatever, continuing. So anyway, at that point, Eleanor had been, again, as soon as she found out she had PCOS, bless her heart, she was on the internet, she was in these forums, she was trying to find out anything I can do myself. That was all she was thinking about. And then she started to look at PCOS from a diet point of view, which is exactly why I wanted to speak to you about today. So Eleanor's diet's completely changed in terms of the things she can and can't eat. So it's all about inflammation.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to explain a little bit about PCOS and kind of what inflammation and what that does, and the foods and stuff that you should and shouldn't eat? Because that's something that we've been focusing on since September. And she's seen an improvement, forget about her ovaries and fertility, but even in her body.
Yeah.
Like the inflammation everywhere is completely decreased just because of changing making some significant diet changes. It's incredible.
Yeah, and a key thing in like PCOS is basically insulin resistance. So we produce the hormone insulin, and that helps to control our blood glucose levels. And basically, people who have PCOS or people who have insulin resistance, their insulin doesn't work quite so well, and that can cause issues with hormones. So it can kind of like increase male hormones in women, such as androgens, and it can give women irregular cycles and things like that. So a key thing for women to manage is insulin resistance.
Yeah.
So like one of the key things is kind of like looking at potentially the quantity of carbohydrates. So because it's carbohydrates that break down into glucose, that's what insulin controls. So we don't have excessive amounts of carbohydrates, but it's more choosing like lower glycemic index ones. So those that like release their glucose that little bit more slowly. So it's thinking about things from that perspective, but also you mentioned, you know, inflammation as well. And inflammation, yeah, it can affect PCOS. It can also just like affect fertility in general. So like a Mediterranean style diet is generally like an anti-inflammatory style diet. So kind of like whole grains, plenty of fruits and veg, nuts and seeds. Like oily fish, omega-3 being kind of like a key component of that diet, but trying to manage inflammation levels and then also control kind of like the blood sugar and the insulin, they can help basically in PCOS management. And I know with Eleanor, she's cut out gluten, hasn't she?
Yeah, completely, yeah.
And this is, because the thing is, there isn't, say, a really strong evidence base behind cutting out gluten for people with PCOS. Like the evidence isn't necessarily there, but a lot of people say that it helps. So if somebody cuts out gluten and it really helps them, then obviously it's working for that individual person. So I think you've always got to kind of like trust your symptoms and what's going on with you, and that's something that's working for her.
Massively. She probably told you she's ate something and then an hour later she's got such a huge bloated stomach. And she's gone, what the fuck's going on? And it's from like
from gluten. Gluten. Just on that, when you talk about insulin resistance, are we talking about people who are pre-diabetic? So with a higher, so if you're waking up in the morning and your blood sugar levels is over 100, then this is something that you need to look at.
So yeah, people can have, so people with like diabetes or even pre-diabetes, often if people carry a little bit of extra weight, like insulin resistance is often the reason for that. But with PCOS, you can have insulin resistance, but they may not yet be at the point of having elevated blood glucose levels. But it's all kind of like within like a metabolic syndrome. They're all metabolic conditions. So it does mean that people with PCOS are at higher risk of getting things like type 2 diabetes as well.
I didn't know that.
So
would it be worth them to buy like a glucometer to test their blood sugar levels, or is it more just dependent on, you know, focusing more about the foods that they're eating?
Yeah, to be honest, there's lots of different things that you can explore. I think, you know, going to your GP and understanding like what are the tests that they recommend, because like, you know, just as we were saying before, you could take a guess, like you could say it could be that, could be that, and
there's a lot of
like
that.
You can end up wasting money.
Yeah.
So I would actually say like go via a healthcare professional, like what do they actually recommend for you? And I think there is actually like there's a lot to be learned in what's going on in your body from doing various tests. Like I've done like various like nutrition tests over the years, like you know, I've been like deficient in vitamin D at some point, deficient in like vitamin B12 because I'm like largely plant-based, and I wouldn't have known, because you can go on like quite happily and have these nutrient deficiencies, but they can actually like, well, in fact, both vitamin D and vitamin B12, like low levels are associated with infertility.
Right.
So it's like I've now corrected those, because I looked at that years ago, just because it's like, you know, it's what I do for work. It's something that I'm interested in, but like I felt fine. So it was only through my like geeky nutrition nature that I wanted to go and find that out. So it can be worth doing these tests, but I would like do tests for a reason and get guidance from like a healthcare professional what might be like the most relevant tests for you.
What on that? What about intermittent fasting and fertility?
So I would say that there isn't real. Okay, there's different ways in which you can intermittent fast. So probably like the most common one is like time restricted eating. So say like a 16-8, for example. So you fast for 16 hours and then you feast, if you like, for 8. And that really is like, it's not too restrictive. You can have other types of intermittent fasting like ADF, so like alternate daily fasting, where people can have like little to no calories for like 24 hours. So that is more restrictive. There isn't really kind of like sufficient evidence to really say one way or another, but I would say with regards to fertility, we don't really want to do anything too extreme. Funnily enough, like with insulin resistance and with PCOS, there has been some research to show that like intermittent fasting can potentially support women with PCOS in terms of like supporting insulin resistance and reducing testosterone levels. But yeah, I would say like the research is in its infancy to say like yay or nay. And I think with a lot of these things, it's about common sense, because you don't want to do anything too extreme. You don't want to knock your hormones out of balance. So yeah, common sense approach is always a good one.
Well, yeah, we were talking about the intermittent fasting before this, because for Christmas, Father Christmas brought Eleanor a book.
Did
From
he
the
go to
library.
You just knew it from the library.
We saw our opportunity.
You got that in, didn't you? It was Fast Like a Girl, Dr. Min.
Oh yeah,
Dr.
yeah.
Min.
I've got.
The glucose queen. Of the
Yeah,
call
she's
her.
brilliant.
Yeah, really
Yeah.
good. I
I
saw her for
really
the
wanna
first
read
time.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
Eleanor's loving it, and
Okay.
and we're obviously trying naturally now. You know, since that episode we had, the hospital episode in September, we've been trying naturally, and she got this book this month and last month, and she said, "Oh, maybe I'm going to start fasting now," and I'm like. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know whether it's work. Like you said, it could completely knock everything out. Like it's a big shock to the system, but also it might help. Who the fuck knows? Like something like this in its infancy.
Exactly. And I mean, if she does something, you know, if she's not going too extreme and she's not doing like 24-hour fast and she's just doing like, you know, a 16/8 or something like that, there's no harm in trying it. If you guys have, you know, you've been trying to conceive for X amount of time, what's you know there's no harm in trying something that little bit different. It's just about kind of like not going to the extreme.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's funny there is that like when I mention intermittent fasting to everyone, we always talk about the 16/8 as being like, you know, the standard.
Yeah.
But I might butcher this, and someone might tell me in the comments. But apparently, between fasting just over 12 hours and 16 hours, there's actually no real difference that the body gets because you won't tap into autophagy. The only reason why 16/8 is so famous is because the scientist that was doing the study on the rats at the time was only allowed from his partner at home to stay in the lab for 16 hours at a time, and that's where that actually comes to play. Apparently, you know, I could be completely wrong, and I'm sure someone might let me know. But yeah, anyway, that was my little part there.
Interesting. Just moving on from this, actually, I don't want to go into any more of that journey. To be honest, that is the journey. So, like,
that was very brave of you to talk about that as well, Jacky,
Yeah.
mate. Like, fair play to you, bro.
I told you that I didn't want to tell you any about this, and I wanted to do it on the podcast.
Yeah, well done,
for
bro.
the first time because I didn't actually want to speak about it before.
Yeah, but it needs to be said, and
Yeah.
I think well done, man.
Thanks. I think that there's a lot of people out there who have gone through similar things, whether it's through IVF, whether it's just trying for children. This stuff is really hard, different for everyone, but it can be a difficult journey.
Absolutely.
And I've struggled to know who to turn to speak to about this. And I just want people who anyone's listening, if this conversation can make you feel like you're not on your own, one person feel like they're not on their own, I think this conversation's worth having.
Yeah.
But moving on from the journey that I've been on, and it kind of ties in, but prior to COVID, when we were on our DJ music industry journey, I'm interested to know what affects the lifestyle that we used to lead, i.e., late nights,
drugs and rock and roll.
Drugs, not much sex. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So drugs and drink and late nights, jet lag, all those things that are really demanding,
especially late nights. Like that's what I'm interested to know. Like the impact of that.
Let's start with sleep. What sort of impact does sleep have on male fertility, for example?
Yeah, so sleep or lack of can affect both male and female fertility. So a lot of it in terms of like male fertility is the effect of like lifestyle and behaviors on kind of like sperm health and sperm quality. Like the less sleep that you have, the kind of like the more stressed your body is in essence, and it's not able to work as efficiently as it could do. So things just aren't as great. Sleep does impact it, as does obviously like within this profession, probably alcohol intake is slightly higher than most careers.
A lot.
And like you'd hope so.
And like I think it goes without saying, drink and drugs as well. You know, we've been open about our issues with that, and I'm assuming that also has an impact. Of course, it's going to have an impact, right?
Yeah, because I mean, even things like, say, you know, alcohol, for example. So the good news is like low to moderate alcohol intake for men doesn't seem to have too much of a negative effect. But when we get to the heavy alcohol drinking, which to be honest, let's face it, is pretty prevalent in the dance music industry, then it can have an impact on, say, like testosterone levels, for example. It can lower testosterone levels. And then also, just in terms of various aspects of sperm quality. Similarly, different types of drugs can affect sperm in different ways, but it's negative.
Yeah, of course.
And then, you know, there's smoking. as
Of course,
well.
I never even thought about that one.
Yeah.
And then, sadly, because I know everybody's like moved over to vaping because it's the healthy choice.
Yeah,
Again,
fucking hell,
inverted
it's mad,
commas.
innit?
But actually, you know, even with that, obviously, like vaping is a new thing, but the research that's coming out already is saying that it's negatively associated
okay.
with
Testosterone levels, right? I've read that. Yeah.
What about something that I think a lot of people don't speak about is like stress? How does that impact?
So stress and infertility are definitely linked, but what we're not so sure about, what the research isn't conclusive on, is like, you know, the chicken and the egg, like which causes which. Does stress cause infertility, or does infertility cause stress? So we don't really know the answer to that question, but what we do know is that we want to minimize stress, because like stress makes, you know, situation that you've gone through, if you throw stress into that, it just makes it like kind of unmanageable. So when somebody's going through like a fertility or infertility journey, to have a focus on like stress management, self-care, taking like time for you should be a part of that, to make that journey easier for people to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as Ron, how could we improve fertility for men? And one thing you mentioned earlier was supplementation. Like what are the key supplements to help improve?
And food as well, because this is your
Oh,
area.
well, this
so
is where we're
supplements
gonna-
and food,
supplements and food,
everything. Let's go there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, okay, so start from kind of like the diet side. So for both men and for women, like the Mediterranean style diet has been shown to kind of be like the most protective dietary pattern for fertility. And you compare it to basically like the Western diet, which is our diet, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to have like the whole grains, the fruit and veg, and we're talking about, you know, an array of different colours, the nuts, seeds, and plant-based proteins, herbs, spices, you know, just the good stuff, like the healthy fats, the olive oil, the omega-3, the oily fish. And to have that as a foundation is a really, really good starting point. And it's kind of like an easy foundation, if you mean. I mean, not necessarily like easy to execute, but it's easy to understand.
Yeah.
But then it can get really quite specific in terms of supplements. So like for women, there's pretty good evidence about using prenatal supplements, which are just basically like multivitamins, if you like, but they're tailored for fertility and for kind of like the nutrients that are important for female reproductive health. And there's been research to show that it can reduce time to pregnancy, can increase markers like AMH, which is a marker of ovarian reserve, like all sorts of, and just increased chance of pregnancy. So for women, I think it's a really good thing to do when you're trying to conceive. For men as well, because I mean, what these things can do, and especially like thinking about the DJ life, like from the people that I know that work in the music industry, especially when they travel, you know, the DJ diet might be like beige.
Oh, it's very beige. Airport food.
I'm
Exactly.
White. The whitest
Right.
possible. Sorry, carry on. Just ignore him. you have to get that in there. But yes, no, the diet is I can vouch for it. It's sandwiches, it's
Yeah.
Subways, it's like
Well,
McDonald's. It's crap. It is really, it really
exactly. So I mean that poses, you know, a challenge in itself, like the diet being like one of the core foundations. So it's like, you know, what can people do? It's just like every attempt or everything that you can do to kind of, you know, thinking about antioxidants, because when we speak about like DNA fragmentation or like degradation of sperm parameters, a lot of it is through oxidative stress. So antioxidants that you find in all those nice colourful fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, different things like that can counteract oxidative stress.
Okay.
So anything that we can do to optimise the antioxidant capacity, you know, even just like you're at Burger King in Ibiza Airport and
Don't. Flashbacks, fucking hell.
Shudders.
and they might do a Tropicana. You know,
Yeah.
one of your
Hell
5
lucky.
a day.
Yeah.
You've got to take these small wins. But little things like that. Even if you're there, you get a pot of olives.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Compromise.
I'm weird.
Compromise.
I think about these things and I count the portions of fruit and veg that I have. So I'm like, oh, olives, there's one of my 5 a day. You know, it's just like it's
100%.
it's little things like that. So it's looking how you can maximize. So yeah, that's kind of like from the diet side. But for a lot of people who work in this industry, their diet will probably be nutritionally incomplete.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is where supplements can play a role. If your diet is nutritionally incomplete, then a supplement can help to basically fill those gaps. And then some of the nutrients that you'll find within supplements, so say like vitamin E, vitamin C, zinc and selenium, they're like key antioxidants, so that they can support all those like sperm parameters that we mentioned, and they're also antioxidants. So they're really going to help things. So I think a multivitamin, whether it's kind of like a like a fertility supplement for men or just like a general multivitamin, can be really useful. And then in terms of additional supplements, this is when it gets kind of like quite tailored. So if somebody has like a low sperm concentration, or they have low sperm motility, or they have DNA fragmentation, the recommended supplements might be a little bit different, just basically based upon the evidence for that particular parameter. So like for people, when they're wanting to get to that level of detail, that would be when I say like go and speak to like a fertility like dietitian or fertility nutritionist who can kind of like devise a protocol for you. But I do think in people whose diets are nutritionally incomplete and find it difficult to eat that healthy, well-balanced diet, then a multivitamin type thing can be very useful.
But you weren't expecting that answer.
No. What about stuff like vitamin D? Would you recommend maybe a supplementation of that? I've been reading a lot of studies about how a lot of people are deficient of that anyway. Would that have a big impact, or is it just a multivitamin in general?
So your multivitamin, I mean, it would be a very, very bad multivitamin if it didn't include vitamin D. But yeah, so like public health guidance is that everybody in the UK, because we obviously get no sunshine in the winter months, everybody should take at least a supplement of 10 micrograms of vitamin D through winter months. And then supposing that we get enough sun exposure in the summer, then because we can synthesize vitamin D through the sun, basically, we can get insufficient amounts from food. So yeah, certainly throughout the winter, but this is when like the testing comes in. So it's like if people are genuinely interested in their health, go and get your levels checked. Like see if you are deficient, because a lot of people in the UK are deficient in vitamin D, and like there's a rise in plant-based eaters as well. So there could be other deficiencies such as like vitamin B12 that I mentioned before. So if you have deficiencies, then taking supplements that will cover those particular nutrients, then that is obviously a good thing to do as well.
Amazing. Just going to move on from there because I'm conscious of time, but I don't know whether you want to go into this. But you mentioned at the start of the conversation that you're going to be freezing your eggs. And I just wanted to know, like, what's the next steps for you now? So where are you in that process? If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine.
Oh, no.
But I think if you want to talk about that, that would be great because, again, it's something else that, you're putting on your social media. So I thought it might be useful for the listeners to know kind of what's next in that process. Yeah,
of course. Well, yeah, my egg freezing kind of came out of nowhere. But I was in a long-term relationship. To make the story a little bit sadder, was actually supposed to be getting married next year. Anyway, things ended relatively abruptly. So at 37, I'm like, right, okay, I need to then think about what my plan B is. And right now I don't know whether it is that I want to have children or not in the future. But freezing your eggs, it's not a guarantee, but it can be a good semi-insurance policy, if you like, if you are going to consider having children in the future, especially at my age of 37. We know that fertility declines as we age. It's for women and also men as well that people don't actually take into consideration. So where I am now is I've just had some of my tests, so similar to what Eleanor will have done to assess my ovarian reserve. And because I'm a nutrition geek and I also did them a year ago, through like my supplement regime and things that I've been doing, my levels have like increased relatively significantly.
In a year, in just a year. Yeah, that's amazing.
In the past year, which is like, it's pleasing my inner nutrition geek. And then, so like the next steps for me are I'll start taking my tablets on Saturday. So that will be then for a couple of weeks. And then I will be visiting my fertility clinic to basically start the process. I'll then be taking the injections. Then they'll be doing, the scans to understand what's going on. And then my egg retrieval will be next month.
Oh, amazing.
Just a quick one on that. Like, what sort of age are we looking at for the decrease in fertility for men? Because I'm 36 in a couple of weeks. So
how old are you?
35 next week.
I'm the oldest. Damn.
Yeah, just
don't look it. All right. You're all right.
So for women, generally it tends to be over the age of 35 where we start to see a decline. But But at the clinic, they said actually in terms of like egg quality, where they see even more of a drop is kind of like 38. But it's not to say that, you know, anything is kind of like impossible. In terms of men, generally we start to see the decline in between the ages of like 40 to 45.
Okay.
And it tends to be in terms of like, again, it's the sperm quality. It just tends to, it gets worse as we age. And similarly for women, because obviously we have an ovarian reserve, our eggs deplete. So the quantity of our eggs reduce, but also the quality. And it's the same with sperm. And a lot of it comes from oxidative stress. Yeah. So things like heavy alcohol consumption, smoking, you know, different things, these can, like being inactive, this can kind of like increase oxidative stress. And this is why I always bang on about antioxidants, because it can help to kind of like counteract some of that damage. And that's why the diet and supplements can play a really big role there.
I've got so many questions now. I'm looking at the time. Just one last one though. If you have had, you know, 10 years in the music industry, you've done a lot of damage. Will changing your diet, taking supplements, exercising, will that potentially improve your fertility, even though you're getting into, you know, the later years?
Yeah, good question.
I'm so glad you asked that question. It's an amazing question, because hopefully I have a good answer. But basically, in terms of this is for both men and for women, we kind of have like this 3-month window of opportunity, if you like, because for a woman it takes around 90 to 100 days for an egg to mature and develop before ovulation. Similarly, for men, it takes around 2.5 months for a sperm to mature. So during that time, everything that we do within that window can positively influence the health of like the egg and the sperm. So it can be actually like a really like empowering time. So, you know, if people say like people are going to start preparing for IVF, then if you're doing that as a couple, then the guy and the girl, ideally for the few months beforehand, will just start to optimize their lifestyle, their diet. And, you know, it's up to everybody the degree to which they want to do it. If people want to, you know, I'm not going completely teetotal for the 3 months before my egg collection. I've maybe had like a little bit less to drink, but I'm still having like some alcohol. It's totally a personal choice. But yeah, that 3-month window is basically a huge window of opportunity.
Well, okay, that's great to know.
Good question.
Yeah, great question.
Well, Ro, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate you coming and also talking about your latest journey. That's also very brave. And but from both of you, actually, you know, to hear both of you, Jen, it was very brave of you, both of you. And I'm sure, I mean, I've got a lot of value from this, and hopefully a lot of other people will. Have you got any plugs for us before we go? Anything else that's coming up? Anything you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I'm not really sure. I'm like the audience for your listeners.
Normally we ask for an after party story. So if you got one of them, go for it.
I'm not really too sure.
That's fine.
But yeah, if anybody is interested in fertility, then maybe just the Instagram. So
there we go.
Fertility.dietitian.uk.
Fertility.dietitian.uk. Thank you so. I got it. Thank you so much.
Good. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.